Hello, it's me back again for another round of videos. This time we're going to be going over stative verbs. Stative verbs. You are probably thinking to yourself, stative verbs, what the heck are those exactly? Let's go over them because you still need to know them. We use them all the time, and hopefully this will make it a lot more clear. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, here we go. Just going to launch this into the presentation mode and we can begin from there. Okay, stative verbs, what the heck are those? Those are the verbs that do not take ing. We cannot move these into present progressive. So let's take a look. What is progressive? So maybe I just said present progressive. You're like, oh my gosh, I am really in over my head. Now I'm really confused. What is present progressive? Okay, so you might want to review some of my other videos about present tense because present tense has two forms, right? Simple present, which are facts, habits, general truths, okay? And then on the other hand, we have present progressive. That's when we're talking about the present in terms of what's happening right now. When we use the progressive, we're talking about speaking about an activity in the moment, and we are using a form of to be, am, are, is, and then we're using the verb plus an ing ending. So for example, I am writing this presentation right now, or in fact, I am giving this presentation right now. And you can see the verb, write plus ing. All right, that is what the progressive tense is. But we need to keep this in mind because this is exactly what we cannot do with stative verbs. There aren't many, but the few that we have, we use a lot. So we need to remember those no ing endings. So we use them only in simple form, okay? So for example, we might say simple present in the middle of the chart, I know it. We cannot say I am knowing it right now. That does not make any sense to an English listener, okay? Now, we can also use this, of course, in the past tense and in the future tense, but always and only in simple form, never in progressive. So never with past progressive, never with future progressive. Always and only these verbs can be used in simple form, simple present, simple past, simple future. All right. So I have grouped some of these verbs for you. They're grouped very similarly in our book together, but just in case you don't have the book that we use in our classes, or you're watching this because you stumbled upon this, or you don't have your book with you, doesn't matter. Let's go through half of the list. This is part one. There's still a part two. So we have these four words that kind of have a lot to do with what goes on in your brain, right? To know, to believe, to suppose, and to doubt. I have these ordered in terms of how sure we are when we use these words. For example, when we say, I know the answer, note the present tense there. No, we would not say, I am knowing the answer. It does not work. We simply say, I know the answer. And that is to be very sure, right? 100% sure. I know. Now, believe is a little less sure, okay? And in one way, we can use believe. I believe this is the answer. It makes sense, okay? We can't say, I am believing this is the answer. Again, we are not using progressive form at all with these verbs, only present tense. To suppose is to be maybe 50-50. You're 50% sure that the answer is right. It's a hunch, you think. I suppose this is the answer, but it doesn't seem right. So sometimes maybe even less than 50%. And then when you really don't know, you would use the word or the verb doubt. I doubt this is the answer. It doesn't make any sense. So no starts with like 100% certainty, and each one is a little bit less. But all of them, no matter what, will not take a progressive form under usual circumstances. Okay, let's take a look at this next group. This next group also has some similarities to it. To recognize, to remember, and to understand. Again, working with some of the visual and brain connection here. To recognize means to remember, to see something and say, oh, that is familiar. I know that. Okay. So to recognize is very close to remember. To recognize has a lot to do with visual. So it's not just something that's in your brain, it's something that you see that makes you remember. So for example, I recognize her. She teaches geometry. I see her. She looks like somebody I know. I remember I do know her, so I recognize her. Oh, I know who she is. I recognize her. She teaches geometry. We cannot say I am recognizing her because that would be progressive, and we do not use progressive with these verbs, right? Remember, same thing. Remember is just all in your brain, not really necessarily a visual connection. I remember taking geometry in high school. And then understand. Understand is to know it. It has a lot to do with knowing. I understand geometry because I had a great teacher. All right, these next three verbs kind of go together in ways of talking about caring for things. In fact, one of the verbs even uses care about. You know, like, right? Like is probably one of the first English words you've learned. I like things. I like scuba diving. Okay. We would not say I am liking scuba diving. We usually say like because it's a statement of fact or truth. I like scuba diving. I like vanilla ice cream. I like sunny days. To appreciate is to like something and care about it, and you value it. It is a treasure to you. I appreciate, value the beauty that I see underwater in the coral reefs. I appreciate. We would not say I am appreciating. We say I appreciate. And then finally, care about is very close to appreciating. To care about someone or something. I care about coral reefs and want to help save them. To appreciate is a little more removed from something. You can see it and say, wow, that's really pretty. To care about means you'd be willing to take action. It's something that would drive you to want to do something about it. Okay. You can appreciate a teacher for having taught you something, but when you care about that teacher, it means that you would maybe strike up conversation with that teacher anytime you see that teacher. If something bad happened in that teacher's life, you would reach out with a phone call or a text message and let them know you're thinking about them. There's a big difference in your level of involvement between appreciate and care about, but it's still all very closely related. All right, please and prefer. If you watched my video about would rather, you saw me explain prefer, what prefer means. And in this case, please doesn't mean like please and thank you. This case, please means it makes me happy. Same thing with prefer, right? To prefer is something that you like better than something else. So this all has to do with, again, with liking things, very similar to the previous screen, but these two kind of have their own flavor. Gardening pleases me. I like gardening. Gardening pleases me. It makes me happy. I prefer vegetables to fruit. This is very similar to would rather, right? I would rather eat vegetables than fruit. I prefer vegetables to fruit. There are two different ways to say the exact same idea. So remember that because you learned something new, okay, that you can use in addition to your would rather statements. And here we have another group, dislike, mind, fear, and hate. Now, mind here doesn't mean your mind, not this thing, this noun. To mind means to be bothered by something. It bothers you. So I dislike traffic. I think we can all agree on that, right? We all dislike traffic. I mind sitting for hours stuck on the highway. That bothers me. I don't like it. I mind it. Now, we don't use that very often, to be honest. We simply say, I don't like it or I dislike it. What we do use more, though, is I don't mind. I don't mind. For some reason, we use the negative far more than the positive. So I included the negative here so you could see it. I don't mind taking the subway to avoid city traffic. Oh, did you see my typo? I need the in there. I don't mind taking the subway to avoid city traffic. Okay, good. Make sure you get that. I don't mind taking the subway. So here you're saying, that doesn't bother me. And we use that construction a whole lot more, okay? The third one, I fear. Uh, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're physically afraid. It just means you're worried about it, really worried. I am worried we will be stuck here a long time. I fear we will be stuck here a long time. And finally, the last one, I hate being late. You know hate as much as you know like. But here are some others. They are used less often, but they're still really good words to know, especially I don't mind. For example, you might hear someone who's an English speaker but speaks more formally. They might say, would you mind closing the door? Would you mind turning off the lights for our class so I can show the video? And you might say, no, I don't mind. It doesn't bother me. So it's a good good phrase to know here. Okay, some good stative verbs. And then we have belong, possess, and own. Again, a cluster of three that means something very similarly. In this case, almost identical. The bike belongs to me. I possess two bikes. I own two bikes. And let's really be honest, we don't use possess hardly ever in terms of speaking. Very rarely it might be used in the written because it's so formal. We simply say, if you look at that little asterisk down here, we simply say, I have two bikes. That's how we say it. But if you use possess, we tend to use it more as a noun in the noun form. So for example, of all my possessions, that bike is my favorite. Possessions are the things that you own or that belong to you. So you could see how this works and why they all go together. Belongs, possess, and own are nearly identical here. So that's really easy, right? All right, there are more stative verbs. There's going to be a part 2 video that you can watch to keep learning about these stative verbs, but use this video, watch this video several times. Really remind yourself of what you cannot put into a progressive form. They must always stay in their simple form, whether using past, present, or future. Simple is the way to go with these stative verbs. Good luck. Keep studying.